Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome along. I'm not in the wilds of Suffolk today. As you can see, I've got the Aurora Borealis with us today. There's a reason for that, which I'll explain soon. But today, I've got a wonderful guest with me. He is an independent filmmaker. His name is Randy Kelly Jr., and he's come here today to talk about a series of films, short films that he did called The Survivors. And they're absolutely incredible, and I've invited him on today to have a chat with him about his passion, about my passion of films, and just to dig into his brain a little bit to find out what it takes to do what he does and why he's done it, and yeah, the ins and outs of what he's done. So Randy, welcome along, and thanks so much for being here.
Well, thanks, man. I'm honored to actually be part of your show because I've been watching you for a while. So I'm really glad to be here too, man.
Great, great. Well, look, I'll give people a bit of a background. We are both part of the Red Pill family community on the app that Josh has created, and we met through there. You know, you've seen some of the stuff that I've posted. We've had a little bit of backwards and forwards conversation. We don't know each other very well. I'm in the UK. You're over in the US. But we've shared some information. I got to see your stuff, and I was blown away by it. And a long time ago, I wanted to have an opportunity to talk to you about what you've done. But, you know, scheduling and everything like that, this is finally we get to have a chat. This is amazing. So I've got so many questions. I have so many questions. But let's start off a little bit about you. I mean, who are you? I mean, what's led you to where you are today? How did you get into filmmaking? What's the evolution of going from what was your life before to getting to that point where you started making these independent films?
Well, I've actually been interested in filmmaking since I was a kid. My parents got their first VHS camera when I was 13.
Right.
And I always say that I have not set a camera down since. Now, I've never done this like professionally, I should say. I'm more of a hobbyist filmmaker, really, and independent. But, you know, really, I would say I didn't really get a chance to really get serious about trying to make films. Probably not until about a little over 10 years ago. Maybe about 15 years ago, I guess it is. And when I picked up, you know, that point, learning how to screenwrite, learning how to actually tell a real story besides just doing like, you know, stupid skits of my brother or whatever when I was a kid. You know, the last decade and a half has been a big, you know, learning curve of how to actually make movies. And I would say that I'm finally over the last 5 years, you know, getting a little more, I guess, grounded in and educated, I guess, how to do it properly.
Right.
Still learning though. Still
We're
learning.
learning every day. I mean, you're always taking something from every day, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, is
So
filmmaking is it your day job? Is it? How did you progress from, you know, like you've always been interested in it, but is it your day job? What do you do to? What's your day job that's led you to doing this as a hobby? Is what I mean.
So no, I have a 8 to 5 job. I work at a title company,
Right.
and so a lot of land interaction, research kind of stuff.
Right.
So no, I still have a regular job. This really is something that I do on the side just because it's something I'm passionate about, and
Of
I like
course.
telling stories. So yeah, so no, as far as a day-to-day races, no, this is not a day-to-day job. I wish it was,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Excellent. Well, I tell you what. Before we get too far down the road, now, excuse my, I'm talking to the audience now. Excuse my technical inabilities to make this work. We were having a brief discussion before we started recording, and I can't make the sound work, but I want to give you an idea. I'm going to screen share and give you an idea of what Randy's done with his films. Just a little bit of a glimpse into how it looks, because the look and the sound and the feel of these short films are absolutely amazing. And so I'm going to do a bit of a screen share before we go too far down the road, and let's have a look at the quality of this work, and you'll see what I mean. It's very cinematic. So let's have a look here. There's no sound, so I do apologize, but you'll get to see the cinematography of these shots. I mean, it's just beautiful. I mean, whereabouts do you live? Do you live in the area where you're filming? Is it so? Because that's absolutely incredible, that kind of place.
Yeah, pretty close. I live in a place called Laurel, Montana,
Right.
which is kind of a small town, and it's kind of in the south central part of Montana, and that does give me access kind of 50 miles any direction, west, east, or south to mountains.
Right.
And that place, the first Survivors film was actually filmed in a place just north of the Wyoming border called the Pryor Mountains.
Right.
And that's where that red rock. It's all sand rock, by the way, and very otherworldly. I've been going there for, I don't know, almost 20 years. You know, camping and hiking and that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I always thought that that place photographed really well.
Yeah.
And so when I got a chance to make that first film, we thought with the whole, you know, kind of the Mad Max vibe, that kind of influence, and wanting to be desolate. It's like, well, what we got close by is like that. Well, the Pryors is very inhospitable. If you didn't have modern, you know, conveniences, of course, you
Sure.
would quickly die out there if you didn't. So it kind of has that feel to it for sure.
For sure.
So yeah, that's only about an hour. Let's see, maybe about an hour and 10 minutes from where I live.
Great. And obviously, I mean, with the subject matter, I mean, very Mad Max, very big, sort of the road warrior kind of feel to it. Where does that inspiration come from? I mean, is that the kind of genre you were interested in, or did you have this idea for the movie before you started? How did that come about?
As far as influence in that direction, I would say my interest, I guess you'd say influence, is an 80s movie, action movie fan. So I grew up loving Indiana Jones, Star Wars, you know, and Mad Max, The Road Warrior, those kind of things, and anything apocalyptic. So it was a variety of action movie stuff. But the actual story idea for the first Survivors came from my son, who's actually in the movie. The kind of the fun backstory is that I had kind of given up. So in early 2016, I was going to film a kind of a zombie apocalypse sort of short story, and things just weren't coming together. People weren't quite following through with things, and I guess got frustrated. I said, you know what, this is not worth it. I'm done, because to that point I had kind of had a lot of struggles with, you know, not getting finances and support to make these things. And so I got a point where I was just kind of quitting, you know. But I was also at the same time interested in re-entering the field of wedding videography.
Right.
And so I had gotten this camera that I wanted to test all the settings for. So me and my son Bryce were out one night, and I was testing the settings, and I was filming him. And out of the blue, he says, "Hey, Dad, I've got an idea." I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "What if there's he had an idea for a story?" And he starts telling me the story about a boy who could see the future, and in this future, he sees military and people coming to round people up and putting them into camps. And I thought, well, that's kind of an interesting idea. And so we talked about it, and he goes, "Well, it could be a movie." And I'm like, well, who's going to be in this movie? He goes, "Well, I'll play the character." I'm like, seriously? So at that moment, as a dad, I didn't even care if the movie turned out like crap.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't care.
Yeah.
I'm like, my son, who is very reserved, doesn't like to talk to a lot of people, never goes out there like that. If he's willing to do that, I'm like, I'm game. Let's go film something.
Sure.
And if nothing else, you know, father and son get to do something cool and have it on film. And but I realized that the story that he came up with was getting kind of complicated, and so I said, well, let's dumb it down a little bit. Let's simplify it to its, you know, basic elements. A boy trying to survive out in the middle of nowhere. Let's just take it down to that. And once we did that, and did some tests and stuff, and figured a few things out, the story kind of developed. And the weird thing is, that's a circumstance where things came together in a strange way, because I was, like I said, doing this mostly because my son wanted to do it, right? And I reached out to see who, once I wrote the story, I wrote it in early March of 2017 when I wrote that.
Right.
And I
this
reached
is
out
Sins
to
of the
some
Father,
people.
is it?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
And I reached out to some actors and stuff here in Montana, and people whom never would have reached out before just did. They responded to the script. And I got people that from almost nobody, actually nobody except my son that's on screen, and the guy that drives the white truck, nobody's local. Everybody came from either Arizona or way out west of me in Montana. And so they drove a good distance to be here. And we filmed it in June. So like, was that 3 months? 3 months later, after doing the script, we filmed it.
Wow.
So it came together in kind of a weird way. I didn't expect it to. And it kind of had this weird, it has a special place for us now. Just, I don't know, it just came together so well.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing. I watched the whole trilogy before we came online just to remind myself where we were, and obviously the last piece as well. I love the video. Was it your son and you were working on the car together, getting it ready for the latest movie? You did
that was the first movie. That was
getting ready for the
Father.
first. Right. Okay. So I watched that video and I thought it's such a lovely moment that you have to have, because we're all looking for a connection with our children. I mean, that's where everything we do, we're always looking for that connection with our children. We want to be involved in their lives. We want them to be involved in ours, but we want that. We're always looking for that connection. And I love the fact that you got to be able to do something. Not only did you work on the car, you took a car, you sanded it back and you painted it, got it ready for the movie. But you actually got to do that with your son, and then you got to film with him as well. I mean, it's an amazing moment. It should have been an amazing moment for you and your son. Incredible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sorry, carry on.
I'm going to say, my kids, it's funny because I've always had a video camera in my hand, so my kids have grown up with me filming them. So it's like I literally have 20 years, of footage of my kids. Like, every month of their life is documented. And so the fact that we got to do this together, a passion I like to do, and he wanted to be a part of it. Like I said, I couldn't pass it up. So yeah, it was as a father-son thing. Yeah.
Amazing.
Can't pass it up.
Yeah, amazing. And just I noticed as well in the last one, or it might not have been the last one. The last one that I watched was The Bull, and you're featured in that. You're the main actor in that. You're the only actor in that one. Do you do an Alfred Hitchcock? Because your movies are very thrillerish. It's suspenseful and thrillerish, and it's but Alfred Hitch is sort of Hitchcockish. But do you do like in all the Alfred Hitchcock movies, he did a cameo performance in all the movies. Did you do a cameo on all of yours as well?
No, it's funny. Before Survivors, I mostly was in my own films because I didn't have access to a lot of actors.
Right. Okay.
So it was kind of more necessity. I enjoyed doing it. Again, a kid of the '80s. Pretending to be the action hero. I've played assassins, that kind of stuff, silly stuff, while kind of learning the whole craft. But yeah, once I get into Survivors, I stayed mostly behind the camera. The Bowl that you saw was a result because I actually filmed that in late 2020. Yeah. And it was because nobody was afraid. Everybody was kind of afraid to go out and do things at that time.
For sure. Yeah.
And so a lot of uncertainty. And I was just getting frustrated, to be honest with you. I was like, I had obviously kind of woke up to a lot of stuff going on, and there was something to kind of say there. And I think I was the person that was available to do it, so I just did it. I just put the camera up on a tripod, and then I just did things in post to make it look like it was, moving and stuff. But yeah, so no, I don't tend to go in front of the camera very often. It was mostly out of necessity.
Right.
But I do it once in a while.
Yeah. So I've got a question. You said you spoke to actors and got people involved from outside of the local area where you were. Now, this is going to seem like a strange question. Did you work with any stunt drivers?
So, in Rise of Calestra,
right,
the second one, the second Survivors. Yes, so my main actress, Amy, wonderful human being. She didn't have any kind of experience doing that sort of thing. Well, it just so happened that the guy, Todd, who supplied the vehicles for that second film, the Blazer and all the vehicles are his. He is, he's not, before this, he was not into film either. He loves to race trucks. He builds race trucks and takes his kids to the mud races and that kind of stuff. And his wife also is really into that too. She supports all of that. And she's done a lot of off-roading herself, very competent. Yeah. And we had a conversation one day, and turns out that, she'd be a perfect stunt double. Yeah. She's got the ability to do it, and she's used to working with Todd, who's her husband. Yeah. And so that's what we did. We had her stand in for as Calestra for the stunt driving. Right. So, but everything else is So the first movie is the actors driving.
Right.
Um, you know, but we didn't do anything too dangerous in that one because if you actually watch it, it's just kind of clever editing.
Yeah.
Like the vehicle never actually hits each other. It's just how the camera, you know,
Yeah.
moves and
And how the
you
actors
know,
move
and we
as
only
well. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's very old style cheating, you know, to make things work. It's very much so like the days of the Star Trek, the original series, where they would shake the camera and the crew would lean a certain way to make it look like the ship's going through danger, and then they'll act again.
Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Great.
And that was the tricks we used in the first one. But the second one, I wanted to bring that that chase up, and I had the opportunity because we had that track available to us,
Yeah.
and that wasn't available to us in the first movie. So, yeah, I had a stunt driver for Amy, and Todd is actually in that movie. So the guy that gets out of the driver's side of that black truck, that's actually Todd.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah,
Excellent. Now the reason I asked that question, right, and it's because I haven't got a chance to speak to a filmmaker or a stunt driver for that matter. Now I like to think I'm a pretty good driver. I'm not great, but I'm pretty good, right? But do stunt drivers ever mess up their parallel parking? Because I can't. There's times where I just cannot pull in and do a parallel park out the front of my house. I can't do it. It's impossible. Other times it's boom, straight in, no problem. But do stunt drivers make that mistake as well, or is it just ordinary
I
folk?
I don't know. I don't know a lot of them, honestly.
Yeah.
I can tell you this. I tend to consider myself a decent driver too, but I've actually parallel parked a Ryder truck.
Right.
So yeah, so it's like I don't know. Some people can just do it. Some people can't. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, look, don't get me wrong. Sometimes it's perfect. Just put it in, and you don't even need to pull forward. It's absolutely spot on. But there's times where I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh, it's driving me insane. So I thought I got to ask that question while I've got you. Now this thing's going to cut out. Just give me a second. We're going to restart again because it's for some reason it's going to cut out. But I'll restart again, and then we'll come back and we'll pick it up where we left off. All right.
Okay.
Okay, sorry about that, folks. As I say, technical know-how it's all my fault. Don't pin it on Randy. Now, before we went away, we were talking about involving your children, and look, what I want to get to is you're an ordinary guy. You're just a little guy from a small town in Montana, in the flyover country they call it in the US, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they call it flyover country because it is, as you see, it's sparse. There's not a lot going on. It's a small town out in the middle of nowhere. You're just an ordinary guy, You're no big film producer from Hollywood. You're an ordinary guy, but you're putting your voice out into the world and you're putting your message out. Now, the point of what I'm trying to get here is, in the whole scheme of things, I'm no one. I'm no one. I've traveled the world. I've done these amazing things that I've managed to do in my life, not because I'm any better than anybody else, but because I've pushed myself to go forward and do things and say yes to opportunities when they've come to me. So ordinary people can do amazing things, and it is those amazing things that inspire other people to do amazing things, and it is as we move forward in our own lives now, follow our own path, and we're guided on that path. If you're listening, most of us aren't listening though. So as you're being guided along that path, what spoke to you? What was the inspiration? What was the thoughts? What was the driving things that have driven you to sort of take the paths that you have in your life? I mean, you've got a religious input in your life. You have your church. You have a God that you believe in. What's those inputs that you have that drive you on the directions and the inspirations that lead you in the path that you're on?
It's as far as inspirations go, I don't know. When it comes to film, we can talk inspirations, but as far as I guess my own personal life, it is kind of, you kind of touched on it. It's about listening.
Right.
Over the years is learning to listen to whatever it is, I'm being told and try to process that and to act upon that in a responsible way. I really didn't get an opportunity to do this level of filmmaking until honestly my kids are almost grown. So I've had a whole life where my concentration while still practicing and learning how to do filmmaking during that time, but as far as really being able to concentrate on a deep level, I couldn't really do it. I did my time where I worked 80 hours a week at a bakery. So, you know, I understand that. And that was, you know, for concentrating on family. So once I made a decision to have a family, you know, that takes precedent, you know, in your life, and it always will. But I am lucky now that my kids are older and they don't require as much of my attention to have moved out. So I'm a little bit fortunate that way. And now I'm just trying to listen to, like I said, the opportunities that are presenting themselves and trying to act upon them, you know, responsibly. So that could be, and that's hard to do sometimes. You don't know. You know, I mean, I think we all can relate to that to a degree, right? I think,
For sure.
you know, what am I supposed to be doing? Why am I here? Is those biggest questions, you know.
Of course.
But I think I can sum it up. I think the best way I know how, and I'm going to steal a line from Captain Picard.
Great.
Yeah. This is before they ruined the Cap Picard character, but back in the first Next Generation movie, at the very end, spoilers for those who haven't watched a 20-some-year-old movie.
If you haven't watched it by now, it's too late.
Right. Yeah. They destroy the Enterprise, and you know, it's crashed, and they're on that, and they're kind of reflecting, you know, him and number one are in the captain's ready room, and they're talking about, you know, life in general and how, and you know, what does that look like, and Captain Picard said, I find that it's not so much what you can't, or not so much what you can take with you, or what you're, sorry, not what you leave behind, but it's how you've lived. And I always kind of, when I heard that, I took it to heart. You know, it's like, that's very important, like how you live, because we can't take a limousine full of stuff to heaven or whatever you believe in, right? You can't do that.
For sure.
And so how you spend your time on this planet, however finite that it is, I don't know, it's important that you do that well. And I think that, and we don't always do it perfectly. I know that I've messed up many times, you know, as far as how I've interacted with people and stuff. I'm a human being just like anybody else. But I even take that too when I make films. I will go out of my way to try to find people I want to work with.
For sure.
It's not so much about even making a lot of money or being famous, because I really don't care. I mean, I would like to be able to have returns enough where I could maybe do it as a, you know, regular basis.
For sure.
But mostly I look at those, like the films, is like, hey, a group of people got together that had a similar vision. We shared that weekend or those few weekends, and the film is honestly just proof that we did it.
Yeah.
It's like it's documenting, oh, hey, we did this thing. Here's proof. And we all came together. And so I always try to make sure that how I interact with those people is something that's positive, that when they walk away, they want to come back to. So I joke about it, say it's like having a family reunion you actually want to go to.
Right. Yeah. Great.
You know.
Yeah.
So
great analogy. I like it. Yeah.
So that's kind of the way I look at it. You know, how you interact with people is very important, and you never know. I'll give you a good example. I didn't set out for this in my latest Survivor's film, A Writer's Legacy.
Yeah.
It's the first one that we actually kind of bundled all the films together and showed it in a theater, my local theater here. I'm friends with a very small town theater kind of thing, which is really awesome, you know, mom and pop kind of place.
Sure.
And he was very supportive of showing these things. And I won't say who, but a family member, reasonably close family member, in kind of my extended circle, came to me and said that they were having troubles with certain things. They were having certain struggles in life and kind of feeling lost. Now, this person's young. This person's like, you know, just getting ready to turn 20 years old, and said that somehow this film touched her in a way that kind of guided her to make some decisions. And I was like, wow, that wasn't even in the movie as far as I was concerned. It wasn't something that I put in there on purpose. Yeah. You know, I was putting a different, I mean, the message I was putting in there was, you know, about not holding grudges, not othering people, and you know, trying to do something positive. That was like the three crosses at the end when John, who basically is trying to close a book on this bad upbringing that he had with this adoptive father, you know, with Luther. And he wanted to be something different in the land, right? He doesn't want to be that dark presence. That was kind of basically in a nutshell what I was trying to say. You know, very much so kind of in line with the things we're going through today with politically and stuff like that. It's like, you know, there's so much othering of people. That was actually the messaging that was in that film. But when this person told me that it touched them in that way, I was like, wow. So it just kind of goes to show you never know who's listening.
Yeah.
You never know who's watching.
Yeah.
And that can be, and I don't mean just watching a film. I mean, watching you, listening to you. You never know. And it's awesome. It can be a heavy burden sometimes, in the sense of like, oh, then I really should watch what I'm doing. You know, I should be, it's like, if you're looking up to me, you know, it's like, oh, wow, you know, who am I to look up to? But you just never know.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I try to be very, especially because I'm like you, I'm reaching that half-century mark.
Yeah.
And, you know, and it's like, I've tried to learn how to listen and to be very cognizant of how I interact with people.
Yeah. Well, I took something from it as well. I mean, that's the other thing, that when we're putting ourselves out there, or our work, or our passion projects, or whatever it is that we're putting out into the world, you don't know how it's going to influence people. And you can have 50 people all watch the same event, but because we're all watching it through the lenses of our entire life, everything that's happened to us over our lives, every lens is slightly different for every different person. You know, some people have been brought up in a single parent household. Other people have been brought up with, you know, parents who would fight all the time. You know, everyone's had their own experience in their life, and that's the goggles that we wear every day. That's how our experience is filtered through that lens of our lives. And you don't know how that's going to affect people when you put your work out there, when you put yourself out there. And some people are going to take offense to it. Some people are going to be, but at the same time, some people are going to be inspired by it. You know, and like I say, I came from a small town in the west coast of Australia, and the things I've been able to do in my life, purely because I've said yes to opportunities. It's not because I'm special. It's not because, you know, there's anything special about me. I'm just an ordinary guy that's managed to be able to do amazing things because I say yes to opportunities, and I'm cognizant of the fact that if I do something that's seemingly impossible to people, like I told everyone I was going to get on television, everyone said that's impossible, you know. And then when I did it, other people were inspired, and they were watching, even when I didn't think they were watching. You know, people, you know how it is. And it is, you don't know what influence you're going to have on people when you put your work out there. And a lot of times it really does inspire people to do amazing things in their own life. Take a chance. So, you know, even though you think that your voice doesn't mean anything, or you don't think people are watching you, you think I'm just too small for people to take notice of, your life and your influence matters to the whole world, and you are vitally important. Everyone is vitally important, and their input into this reality, this created reality that we live in, is vitally important. And our feedback to this consciousness, this divine spark, this God, or whatever we're calling it, our feedback, our individual purpose and our individual tasks while we're here, that feedback to that consciousness or that God, or whatever words you like to use, is vital, because if it wasn't, you wouldn't be here. So that's the way I think about it. I've got most of my life wrong. I have, you know, I've gone down some very bad paths, but you know, that's the thing I'm trying to sort of see, and that's why I want to talk with people like yourself, because it inspires me seeing people doing something like the passion project that you've taken on. So let's sort of think about it in a different direction now. The reason I've got the aurora borealis in the background here is because when you live in a city, and a lot of people who are going to be watching this live in cities and larger towns, so they don't get to see the sky at night that you would, because you're out in the middle of nowhere. You know, I'm in a little country town myself, but the sky at night where you are, I mean, describe that to us. Is it do you have that stunning display of stars because you don't have the light pollution that we do have in big cities? Or describe what you see when you're outside in the area where you're living, and these beautiful places where you're filming?
Well, you know, what's funny about that, I wouldn't even to say that I'm in the middle of nowhere is not even completely accurate, because I live right next to Billings. I'm 14 miles away from Billings, which is
Right.
technically, physically speaking, the biggest place in Montana, is town wise. But it's kind of funny, even with Billings as the size that it is, which compared to obviously like a LA or a, you know, New York and places like that, definitely small by comparison.
Yeah.
But even with the city here, you are still able to see that display of stars. And if I'm having a hard time with it, I can drive like maybe 3 miles east or whatever of my town, and I can just get out and watch, look at the stars. So yeah, I that's something that I try to do a lot. I haven't done it so much this year. I've been so busy indoors a lot.
Yeah.
But no, I think that getting out there and really, it's become almost kind of cliche. You hear people talk about it that are into nature and that kind of stuff. But it's, you got to get your feet in the dirt and that. But there's something true about that. You really, and of course, me, it's I very much so. It's God's creation, and I take that to heart. And that's exactly how I describe it. It's God's creation, period. I don't look at it any other way.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, it's more of look at it from two ways: awe and appreciation.
Absolutely.
I'm not fortunate enough to see the Northern Lights. I would love to. How awe-inspiring those things, actually be like you've got in your background there.
Sure.
But for me, just to give you an example of how my attitude is, like even out when I filmed out in the desert like that, it's still gorgeous.
Yeah.
Like it's desolate and it's dry. And, as far as like I said, without modern, conveniences, you would probably die out there, or if you're not a good survivalist trying to find water, but it's still beautiful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so, yeah, I think appreciating that is very, very important because it keeps you grounded, because, you say, oh, I'm awfully small, and you are, we're awfully small in this creation, especially when you start, going out into the stars and even going out in the universe, how small we are, but even just on this planet, how small we are. But like you said, it's interesting. It's kind of cool to kind of bring that full circle. You can be small, but yet you can have connections and a circle of influence in at least today because of, modern technology being like the internet and being able to connect to people.
Sure.
Again, you don't know who you can touch.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of cool. All that comes together like that.
It is. I mean, it is amazing that we can be sitting on opposite sides of the world. You're in America. I'm in a small town in the UK. And it is, and we get to have this conversation, and we get to share this with people all over the world. A lot of my subscribers are in the Netherlands, and they're fighting for their rights, their freedoms at the moment. And this is it's amazing that we can share this kind of information, have these conversations, and share it with the wider world. And you can have someone in Australia watching, you can have someone in the Netherlands, Japan, China. People all over the world could be watching what we're doing, and this is the reason I like to have these conversations with. It's not just about sharing information. It's not just about having conversations. It's about bringing people together to understand each other a bit better, because in the world that we live in now, everything is segregated. People are segregated, and our belief systems, we're told that our beliefs make up who we are, and that's only a small part of it. Our beliefs, people associate with their beliefs and say, that's who I am because I believe in a particular political party, let's say, for instance. Mm-hmm. So anybody that doesn't believe that particular belief, then I don't want to have anything to do with you. And our society is so segregated, and that's apparent in the movies that you've done, is this apocalyptic viewpoint. And especially when you're talking in terms of what we lived through for the past couple of years and the way that people have reacted to that, and everything's hyper politicized, of course. Now, that sort of leads into, with everything that we see as outsiders from America, I'm keenly interested in what's happening in America and the geopolitical stage around the world, but especially in America, because obviously America is a world reserve currency, and that influences a lot of other places around the world because that reserve currency status, anything that happens in America, the policy decisions that happen in America, are obviously going to ripple out and affect the whole world. So from someone who lives in the US, from someone outside the US, being myself, who is keenly interested, I mean, what's it really like there on the ground? I mean, we see these news reports, we see all this stuff coming out of America with a hyper politicization of everything. How is it there from your perspective? I mean, you're in Montana. How is it there being on the ground and seeing it firsthand, and not just seeing it through the television like we are out here and having that? What is it like there? Is it hyper politicized? Is other people sort of really coming together? Are they fighting with each other? How is it where you are?
It's kind of funny. You got to keep in mind, just like Canada or whatever, that the US is a big place.
Of course, yeah.
And there's a lot of separation. And to be honest, where I'm at, it's kind of normal.
Yeah.
Like people here are, it's like, what's that garbage going on in Washington? I don't want to talk about it. There's still a lot. I mean, they're more engaged than they used to be.
Yeah.
But as far as like where I'm at, people just, to be honest, have their normal lives. And it's just, most of what you hear people talk about, it's, I'm tired of the gas prices going up and why they're doing this, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And when the COVID thing happened, there was a lot of, obviously the things, the shutdowns and those things, and that definitely affects everybody and their attitudes. I would say that where I'm at, when it comes to a lot of that stuff, I'm over it.
Right.
I'm just over it. We're going to live our lives.
Yeah.
You're not going to tell us how to live. We're going to live our lives.
Yeah.
So, a lot of that hyper polarization you're seeing, it really is in the, ultra dense cities. Again, like, like the New Yorks and the the LAs,
right.
and, parts of California. Yeah. It's the big urban centers, metropolises, that you see a lot more of that kind of activity. Obviously Portland, places like that, you see a lot more of the riots and those kind of things. But like Montana I would say Montana, Wyoming, again, they describe it as the flyover states, South Dakota, North Dakota, those even Idaho to a certain degree.
Utah as well is in that sort of same.
It kind of is,
Yeah.
But as far as like these states, in this part of the states, kind of central, northern central, or partly in the Pacific Northwest, but you really we're isolated from that in a lot of ways, because most people around here are just kind of normal people.
Yeah.
They're worried about, like I said, get on their lives, obviously it's a weird, and I got very engaged. Like I said, we both have been on that platform together. So you could say we're both kind of awake, I guess is the term I suppose we use. But there is definitely the conversations have morphed a little bit. People are becoming more aware. But I would say that as far as that engagement goes, less so here.
Yeah. Right.
People
are
pretty normal.
Disconnected from it all because they're not in the big cities where it is all being pushed in the that hyper politicization. Now, let's not dwell on the politicization of everything. Let's go in a slightly different direction. Now, obviously where you're out in the, you're not in the middle of nowhere, but you're in a small town. Now we hear, from outsiders. I live in a small town. We're not far away from a place called Rendlesham. A lot of people around the world know of Rendlesham because it was the most famous UFO sighting in the UK.
Yeah.
Obviously, we hear a lot about Area 51, so and strange things flying around and that kind of area in the sort of central states. Have you seen anything like that? Is there anything like that happen in the areas where you are, or is it, is that not that's not something that happens around your way?
It doesn't happen a lot up here, but there is so I actually have seen what might be considered a UFO, but
UAP they call it nowadays. UAP.
That's true. Yeah. This is okay. I'm sorry. This is back in the day before all the cool words came out.
Before the cool kids got
UAP.
Involved and started renaming everything.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah. No, I actually saw what back. It's funny. Now they call them the TR3Bs, the triangle ones.
Yeah, the triangle ones.
Back in the day when I saw one, they were calling them the Vulcans.
Right.
That's what they were calling them back then. I remember, in fact, at that time I was studying the ones. The Vulcans was a name that came out of the UK, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But I saw one of those here. But at the time I'm going, I don't know if it was necessarily alien. It could have been government for all I know.
For sure. Yeah.
We know that they're like, probably 50 years ahead of us. But Montana does have a very famous story because we have Maelstrom Air Force Base, which is northern Montana. It's very close. It's up by Great Falls. It's actually in Great Falls. And I forget what year it was now. I think it was in the 70s, but there was nuclear missiles stored there. And some objects flew overhead and literally shut down the entire base.
Right.
Like it was if every time they would go to each, readiness for each silo, it would shut down. Like, nope, we've got that. And that's the biggest one I've heard of in Montana. Like I said, I think that was in the 70s. I can't remember exactly what year.
Yeah.
But I'm told that people see things here, but I don't see things very often.
Right.
So I've always that's always been a fascinating subject. I really got into that, in the 90s. Of course, the X-Files came out and kind of inspires people, And so I've always been very fascinated by it. I kind of ride this line because I do have my Christian beliefs, and some people say that it doesn't coincide with it, but I
Of course.
tend to disagree. You know, I tend to think, well, if God created us, he could have created anything he
Yeah, of
dang well
course.
wanted.
Yeah.
So I have no proof of anything. I won't write any kind of hard line saying, yeah, I think these things exist or whatever. The honest to God answers, I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's always been very fascinating. I've always been very, very interested in the UFO, UAP, whatever phenomenon. Yeah. So yeah, it's yeah, I'm a Star Trek fan.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's part of my past too. So I'm very, you know, interested in the idea of, especially the way they represent in Star Trek, you know, the very optimistic idea,
Yeah.
you know, of being out in the stars. So no, I don't see very many. I saw once. That's about it.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you should mention. I mean, I had a gentleman on called Michael a few times. He's a NASA engineer, very strong Christian faith as well. And I said, you know, what percentage of the people that work within NASA have a faith? Because you would think that, you know, we're told science is all about disproving God. But you know, I said to him, how many people within NASA would you say have a faith-based belief system? And he said, it's funny that you should ask, because most people do. And it's not about disproving God. It's actually about the way that he described it was actually talking about, he looks around at the unnecessary beauty. If it's all just a lucky happenstance, why are we surrounded by so much unnecessary beauty, including every time we look up at the stars? I mean, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful place that we inhabit. You know, this created reality that we live in is just stunning. But people are so glued to their telephones, or they're so disconnected from everything that they don't take in the majesty and beauty of the place that we live, you know, that's all around them, because they're so stuck to their telephone, or, you know, Instagram or Facebook or whatever else it is. You know, it's distraction, another distraction. Everything's about distraction nowadays. But I mean, look, so what's the next direction for you? Have you got any more films planned? I love the way that the Rider film finished, because at the beginning of it there was the old man, the Black Rider. What was his name?
Barrett.
Yes, Barrett Roberts.
Yep.
He the way that he disposed of someone in the in the third movie. Sorry,
it's the third movie. Yeah. Rider's Legacy.
And then there was the Dark Rider. The Black Rider. He came back, and that's the resurrection story at the end. I mean, it was just the way that it finished was awesome. I really, really liked it, and it was that ending that sort of but is that the ending of the series? Is there more ideas to come, or is it where do you go from here with that storyline?
Well, the fun way to say it is the writer's not done.
Amazing. Amazing.
So actually, I would say, if anything, it's on pause.
Right.
So I had a couple opportunities arise on my doorstep, as I said before we started talking here, that I got hired on to do some small editing for a reasonably sized YouTuber, and we're kind of seeing how that's going to work out. So that's going to keep up some of my time. And then I just got the job for a DP for a feature film filming next year in Montana Western. Yeah, and they're looking at getting Kevin Sorbo and all that. They've all those guys procured. So that's going to be a big deal. And so because I'm still doing that and working my regular job, there won't be time next year for me to, or even this year, for me to film one of my own movies.
Right.
So it's on pause, but there are other Survivors scripts that are either written or in development. Right. I have a couple of shorts. I have 2 shorts that are completely written. And I might even jump on one of them shorts next year if time allows me to. There's 3 shorts in the Survivors World still. And there's one feature that I started writing in 2017 that I never finished because I knew that the budget was going to be too big. So hopefully these other opportunities I'm working on, hopefully will open up to where I can maybe go back to that and maybe really flesh out some characters you've seen before.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so God willing, we'll get to do it.
Calista. I mean, she was
Yeah,
intriguing. I love the character.
yeah. So I'll put it this way: there is a possibility that you may see Calestra and Brenda in the same movie if everything works out.
Right. Okay.
So
Intriguing. Sounds amazing.
yeah,
And I love the fact that these opportunities are coming to you, and it is when you open yourself up to opportunities, and you. I noticed something. It must be 10 years ago now. I've been working as a chef for 35 years. It's my job. It's not who I am. It's my job. As you well know, you have your job, and then you have your things that you do that make you who you are. Now, about 10 years ago, I was working in a restaurant. I was well paid. I had a good staff. Everything was going well. I'd worked there for about 4 years. And it was an easy job for me. I had good money. It was a good team. I could take a few days off. Didn't have to worry about it. It was an excellent place to work. And then one day I decided that I was done, that I had to go and do something else. So I called my wife and I said, I'm quitting my job today. And she said, have you got another job to go to? And I said, no, but do you trust me? And she said, yes, I do. But at this stage, we already had children, very, very young children. And she said, yes, I trust you. And that was enough for me, because I put my trust then. I spoke to God, to the universe, or whatever words you want to use, and said, I put my trust that everything that I need, I'll have when I require it. And just like that, I quit my job. I had no job to go to, and just left it up to opportunities coming to me. Just like that. One day, made a decision and quit my job. I had an interview the next day, and I was hired on with Jamie Oliver. You've heard of Jamie Oliver, no doubt. No?
sorry, I'm not very cultured.
No, that's okay. Jamie Oliver here in the UK is a TV chef who opened a chain of his own restaurants. Quite a big name within the sort of television cooking circles. Yeah. So I was hired onto a brand new brand that he was opening with a guy called Chris Bianco from the US. And just like that, I interviewed, and I didn't think that I was that good. But then when I saw other people have that belief in me that I didn't see in myself, that changed me. But since then, I've opened myself up and said, I'm going to trust and let go of the reins that I thought I was holding in the first place. People try and control their life, and they say, well, if I do this, this, and this, and this, that'll get me to exactly where I want to go. And it never works that way, of course. I mean, it never, ever does. But if you let go of the reins and just trust and have faith in the absence of anything that's telling you that that everything will be okay, if you have faith and you do it with gratitude and love, those opportunities come to you. And that's what you're saying, is that you're experiencing that exact thing when you weren't, nothing in particular was on the table, and then all of a sudden opportunities came to you just like that. I mean, out of the blue. It's an amazing experience, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, just a good little breadcrumb here. The Survivors, that I told you how that came into being. It was not even planned; it just sort of happened. The fact that we did Survivors and it did well, another filmmaker, the one that hired me for next year, it's because of Survivors that he did that.
Yeah.
So here's a film that I wasn't planning on doing. I quit in disgust from filmmaking. I was done.
Yeah.
Decided to do it, and I had no idea that 4 or 5 years later, that because of that, I may get a chance to work with some really, really cool people, and then that opens up other opportunities as well. So yeah, you just don't know. Even you don't know. Like, going back to, if you don't know who's listening to you, you don't even know what the future is going to be, So yeah, it certainly is a balancing act between being responsible with your life, but also listening to those when those opportunities come up. So yeah, it's awesome, dude.
That's amazing. Well done. Well, look, let's call it for today. I want to, just before we go, let me share one more thing. I'll just do a couple of little clips from your movies. Obviously, we can't have the sound because I'm useless with the technology, but just to give people a bit of an idea of what you've done and a bit of the cinematography of what you've done. I want people to see it before we do the sign off, and just give me a couple of minutes and let me share some of this footage with you, because I just find it to be amazing. So, okay, this is from the last movie, A Writer's Legacy, and if you have a look in the cinematography of this, it's just stunning. It really is. It's beautiful. The characters, the way that the shots are planned out, the music, it's so, it builds into something really.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun to do too. I mean, this was, you know, the day that we shot this, as a matter of fact, it was just me and him. There was nobody else there.
Yeah. And just the sound and the sound effects, it really draws you into it. It's amazing what you put together here. This is the one that's the bull. This is the one I really liked. I'll give this a bit of a speed up here.
Oh, that it skipped over on the remnant.
Oh, wait a minute, that's the wrong one. There we are. So we go here. Just the placement of the objects, it draws you in, and it's very much it very much feels like the gold rush days, and when people went out west to make their fortune, and it's got that feel to it where someone's out there and they're out there to not just to survive but to make a way in the world. I mean, it's just I love the way that you put this together. I love the feel of it, the music, the build up. It's the shots. There you are. It's really, I mean, wonderful work. I'll stop that there. But it's oh, hang on a minute, now I've got the just pause that one, I'm still listening to it. There we go. told you that this whole technology business, I always get it wrong. But look, Randy, thank you so much for your time today. Really, it's been an amazing time talking with you, and it's just I hope people take the time to go and have a look at the stuff that you've done. I mean, it's maybe it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I want them to understand that just for an ordinary guy who's followed his passion, followed an opportunity that his son's come up with and said, "Oh, Dad, I want to make I've got an idea for a film." These are the kind of things where a lot of parents would say, "Oh, look, I don't have time today, son," or "I'm busy doing something else," or "I'm busy watching a YouTube video," or "I'm busy watching the news." But if you can take that time and really listen and tune into what's going on around you, especially to do with your children, then it can lead you to places that you never thought you'd go. And it can truly change your relationship with your children in a way that you're interacting with the world.
Absolutely. Totally agree. It's there's nothing else like it. And I was gonna say, it's like, just appreciate what you're doing too. What you're trying to put out there and trying to really share your knowledge and be a positive influence on people. I really appreciate that as well. And I'm sure you don't even know how many people you probably touch.
Wow.
So
we do what we can do to make the world. We try and leave the world better than what we find it.
Yep, that's exactly it. So no, I appreciate you having me, dude. Really, I've been looking forward to this for a while.
It's amazing. Well, look, keep us updated on where you are, and maybe maybe after you've done the big thing that you're doing next year, we can have another conversation, because I'd love to get some feedback on how that went, and you're going to be DP of a big movie. That's a big deal. I'd love to have a bit more feedback from that. So maybe sometime in the future you can come back and we can have another conversation about what's going on and what you've been up to.
Absolutely, I look forward to it.
Wonderful. All right. So on that note, thank you everyone for joining us. I can't thank you enough. Thank you for coming and watching Randy and I have a bit of a chat today. Down in the description box below, I'll have the links for Randy's channel and the Survivor series and some of the other stuff that he's done on there. Take the time to have a look, because you never know what you can do in your life that's going to inspire yourself and inspire action and inspire other people to do things in this world as well. And you never can tell where it's going to lead you. So take the time to look around you, be part of the world, because that's how you get to the opportunities that are going to come to you. So thank you one and all for being here again. Go out to the world, do good and be good. And you can change the world with the way that you talk, the way that you think, and the way that you influence other people through your actions and the way that you live, what you're living in the world. So do that. Let's leave the world a better place, because we all know it could all use a positive influence. So thanks again, one and all. Take care of yourself, take care of each other, and I look forward to seeing you real soon. Ciao for now.